With everybody, so let me get that started here. Okay, so looks like we have most everybody here. We're still missing the Ashleys and a few other people, but they will probably get there. Because you are muted, those of you who have microphones, if you have a question, type it in the chat box at the bottom, and I will try to answer it. Or I will unmute you, and actually at the end or at certain times I will actually unmute everybody, and then we can ask questions and have a conversation. But if there's no complaints, I'm going to go ahead and jump in and start moving through, and we'll just see how things go. Okay. Let's see. Okay, I'm trying to get this PowerPoint to go. There we go. So if you've got the PowerPoint, if you're on the phone, you may want to pull up the PowerPoint. It does have all the information I will cover on it. I will supplement, however, my notes on the PowerPoint. So in terms of what I want to talk about today, just so that you're aware, I want to talk about the visas and sort of our travel status, and talk about getting copies of your passport and your visas to me. We'll talk about money for a little bit. We'll talk about cell phones, electrical adapters, electronic devices, things that you should probably carry every day. We'll talk a little bit about safety, some cultural tips, some packing tips, and then we'll see if there's any questions after that. Those of you who have traveled to China before, some of this may be stuff that you already know. Those of you who have not traveled to China, it may be new. So, okay. Let's see. So I'm still getting noise from somewhere, but anyway. So if that sounds okay, let's go ahead. So visa and travel updates. Everyone should have a copy of their airline itinerary by now. And if you don't have your airline itinerary and your confirmation codes from Tangerine Travel, please let me know ASAP. I have a copy of everybody's itinerary and the confirmation codes and everything that you need to get on the plane. I will bring copies of those with me so that if you forget it or lose it or whatever, that there will be a backup there. So also, whoa, let's see. Hi, Ashley. I'm going to mute you for a minute. So also, everyone should have their passports and visas. If you don't have your passport, it's probably too late. But I think, as I recall, everyone had a passport. You should also have your visa by now. If you have not received your visa, please let me know ASAP. Some of you have already made copies and sent your visa to me. If you have not, I would like a color photo scan or a scan of your passport and your visa, and you can just email that to me. I will then carry a copy of that with me so that if you lose your passport or if there's any problems, that we do have a backup copy. It's also probably a good idea to leave a copy of the scan or photo, whatever you send me, with someone at home. So those of you who are seasoned travelers already know this. That becomes a really important backup document in case you lose your passport or something happens while we're there in China. I'm not expecting anything will happen, but it's better to be safe than sorry. So, yeah, so just a couple things to be aware of. If you don't have your tickets, let me know. If you don't have your visa, let me know. But I've already had a few people who've looked through this and have sent me their passport and visa scans or photos today. So anyway, let's see. I am So money issues. There have been a few questions regarding money and how to handle money in China. For the most part, you will not need money, except in the case that we go shopping. Most entrance fees to museums, parks, and things like that will be taken care of by Hanban. There may be a couple of times where you need it, but it shouldn't be too much. The important thing to realize with China is that China is primarily a cash economy. You can use credit cards in China, but it is difficult. And it frequently requires showing your passport, and actually in some places they don't even take credit cards even though they say they do. So the easiest thing to do is to carry cash, but have credit cards available as a backup. These become important if we have to make airline changes, or if we have to check into a hotel, or if there's health issues or things like that. The credit cards become important then, but as a general rule you probably won't use them. So you should have at least one debit card or a credit card that you can draw cash from. We will find ATMs when we are in China to withdraw cash from. This is a lot easier than actually bringing cash and then trying to exchange it in China. You actually get a better exchange rate at the ATM than you would at a money exchange at the airport or anything else. And it's much more convenient and a lot less paperwork. So make sure that you have some way to get out cash when we are in China. If you want to, you may want to travel with, maybe $100, $200 of US money just as a backup. But don't plan on exchanging that unless it's an emergency. Make sure that when you do, before you leave, that you tell your bank that you are traveling to China if you want to access your cash in China. This goes for credit cards or debit cards. So if they see a transaction from China and you have not told them that you're going, they will shut off your card. And it's very difficult to sometimes get that turned back on. I learned that the hard way in Poland a few years ago. I went to Poland and I forgot to tell them. I figured, I'm going to Europe, it's not a big deal. And I withdrew money once and then it was shut off, and it was over the weekend and I couldn't get anybody to actually respond to the customer service. And so I was 3 days without cash, which made it very tricky in Poland. So make sure that you tell your bank that you're traveling. Most banks have an online form now that you can log into your credit card account or your checking account, and you can just list your itinerary and tell them that you're going to be there. I know I use Wells Fargo, and it's really easy. I don't have to call and talk to anybody anymore. But just in case, make sure you have the contact information for your bank in case there are problems with your cards in China, and also make copies and scans of the front and back of your credit cards and debit cards, and leave those at home with your passport and visa scans so that you have a backup there. If they get lost or anything else and you need to close the account, it's really important to have the numbers and everything there. So just a few tips. And I think that's it in terms of money issues. I had a couple people email me and say, how much money should we plan on spending? It's really kind of up to gifts and other things that you would like to buy. I typically don't spend, more than $200 or $300 when I go to China, partially because I don't have time to really go shopping, but also it's just things are a little more inexpensive there, depending upon what you're going to buy. And so, again, it's kind of up to you. But, as a rough guideline, I generally shoot for about $200, $300 is what I'm going to spend while I'm there. But yeah, it depends on what you want to buy, as Dr. Xue just wrote. Okay. Cell phones in China. The other questions that have come up have been in regard to using your cell phone in China. Your cell phone, depending on what you have, most cell phones should work in China. The network in China is similar to the network here in the US, so you should not have to install a new SIM card or anything in your phone before you go. But you may want to call your cell phone provider to verify this before. You should also, if you're going to plan on using your cell phone in China for voice calls or for data, meaning data from the cellular network, not on Wi-Fi, you should probably purchase an international data or calling plan. And I know that AT&T, Verizon, and Sprint all have different international data and calling plans. Some of them are based on minutes. Some of them are based upon megabytes of data. So it's probably worth looking into those if you want to use your phone while you're in China. I have sometimes used it and typically find that I'll use, texting home and sending pictures and stuff, I'll use about 500 megabytes of data in a week. And then in terms of talking, I don't talk over the cell phone. I don't use my cell phone for voice calls except for an emergency. I typically use Skype or FaceTime when I'm on a Wi-Fi network. So the only reason is to have access to that data so that I can send text messages or something to family or to other people in China to keep in touch. But again, it's up to you and depends on how connected you want to stay with family back home. When you're not using your cell phone, if you don't buy an international data calling plan, or even if you do and you want to make sure that you save those minutes, you need to make sure that you put it in airplane mode or that you turn off the cellular data so that you don't get unexpected charges. There's a lot of apps that run data in the background, and you need to, just make sure all those are closed. It's really easy for different apps to use up a lot of cellular data while you're not paying attention, especially apps like that use location finder. If you're going to use a location or use a map or something, that will eat up a ton of cellular data and you won't even know it. And again, as I said, I use Skype, FaceTime to talk with back home over Wi-Fi, which saves, cellular voice time. So anyway, in most places in China, you can access a Wi-Fi network, and the Wi-Fi is often better than we have here in the US. It often entails asking for the password, but we can help you with that. But all the hotels will have Wi-Fi, and most public places will have Wi-Fi. So if you need it, we can certainly help you get that. And it is possible to make it the whole time without using your cellular data if you want to just use Wi-Fi. It, again, just really depends upon how connected you want to stay with the folks at home. So, trying to think. With that said, are there any questions with regards to phones before I continue? If you have a question, type it in the chat. This is called wait time in pedagogical terms. I love wait time. Okay, I'm going to assume that means there's no questions. If they're coming, they'll pop up. The one thing you should know is I will purchase an international data and calling plan for my phone while we are in China. So if there's an emergency or something, I will have the ability to call. So if you don't want to do that and you just, if you were only going to do it for emergencies, I will have the ability to call the U.S. in an emergency. So if you don't want to buy it and, hope and use my plan, that would be fine as well. So, but again, it's really up to you and kind of what you would prefer. Okay, let's go to electrical adapters. Those of you who've traveled to China know this. China is fun, partially because of different cities were built different ways. Yeah, so Dr. Shua, sorry, Dr. Shua just typed in that make sure you put your cell phone in airplane mode if you don't plan to use it. And that, again, that's true. You do need to put your cell phone in airplane mode or turn off cellular data. Either way, airplane mode sometimes shuts off other things that you may want to use. So I typically turn off my cellular data. I go in and turn off all my cellular data. And that typically works. But again, figure out what works on your phone. Figure out, I would call your carrier and make sure that you understand how your phone will work in China so that you don't end up with any unexpected charges. But the phone is very convenient, and it's again, our cameras and everything else are on our phones nowadays. So I would expect that most people are going to bring one. Okay, so back to electrical. China has lots of different electrical systems depending on the city and where you're at, but in general it's 220 volt and 50 cycle. Most US devices are 110 volt, which means that you will need an electrical adapter for most of your devices and appliances. Now some have it built in, have the adapter part built in, so things like computer cords where they have the box that's on the cord. That is actually the adapter, and if you look at that, it will typically tell you the range of voltage that you can use it on. So, for example, I'm looking at my Mac adapter now, and it works from 100 to 240 volt. But the prongs on that adapter, on that cord, are not going to work in the wall, so I have to bring an adapter to plug into the wall. Some hotels will provide adapters, but I wouldn't count on it. It's usually best to carry a universal adapter. I put a picture of one on the slide there. You can buy all sorts. I mean, they cost about $25. You can buy ones with USB plugins already built in. You can buy ones that have multiple plugs, and they're worth having, especially if you're going to travel. The trickiest items are items that do not have the adapter on it. So most technology has an adapter built into the cord, so you can plug that directly into the wall if you have the ability, and it's fine. But things that do not have the adapter on the cord, like hair dryers, electric razors, battery chargers, things like that, these are really tricky, and it's best if you can to try to do without them, or to make sure that the adapter that you buy is going to work with them. You'll actually see in a lot of the bathrooms and stuff warnings on the electrical outlets on the wall about plugging in hair dryers and electric razors without adapters, because they can cause problems. So anyway, yeah, buy a universal adapter, then you have it, and it will help you. Don't rely on the hotels to have them. So that's all I'm going to say about that. In terms of electronic devices related to the electrical adapters, some of the questions I've gotten are also related to electronic devices to travel with. iPhones and iPads are generally safe choices for traveling in China. They are supported on Chinese networks, and I haven't had any issues with them, and most other people that I work with have not had issues with Apple products. Android devices are a little problematic. This is because as of last year, Google is now blocked in China again. For a while it was open, and then it was blocked, and now it's blocked again. Android devices use a Google operating system, and so sometimes there is difficulty accessing some of the apps, the App Store, and some of the services that your Android device needs to work through the Great Firewall. So I actually have a friend in Shanghai who uses an Android phone, and he actually has to fly to the Philippines. He's single and relatively wealthy, but whenever he needs to do an update or get a new app, or change his phone, his Android phone, he flies to the Philippines to do that. So Android devices are a little bit problematic. So you can, if you have an Android phone, you can bring it, and we can try to make it work. but I am not guaranteeing anything. It's kind of hit and miss sometimes. If you're bringing a computer, Mac computers are generally safe. PC laptops are less so. This has to do with, number one, their construction. Macs are constructed in such a way that they're more difficult to tamper with. PC laptops are easier to tamper with. Also, the operating system on PCs is easier to hack than the operating system on a Mac computer. So Mac computers just in general are safer from viruses and other things that you might pick up. So there's not going to be a lot of time to be doing email or other things. Once we leave the hotel in the morning, we're going to be out for most of the day. So if you just consider whether you really need to bring a computer or not. Again, it's a pretty big, bulky item in some cases, and you have to just wonder, just think about whether it's worth bringing. I will have my computer. I have a small MacBook, and I bring it primarily to back up photos and things like that. But anyway, it's up to you. What do you want to carry? It's going to be difficult to lug a computer around during the day. So again, if you want to do that additional weight, that's one thing. You may not want to leave the computer in the room when we're gone. So again, just consider it. I have typically, the last couple trips, I have just brought my iPhone and iPad, and have gotten along just fine with those. They're easy to carry, they're secure, and they've been pretty safe choices. But again, it's personal preference. Using the internet. So this may sway some of you in terms of bringing your computer or not, but this also applies to cell phones and iPads. Yes, there is internet in China, but you will not be able to access many services here in the US without a VPN. So a VPN is a virtual private network, if you're wondering what that stands for. So if you go to China and you get on the internet and you want to do a Facebook update, or you want to look at a Google search, and you want to check Gmail or post something to Twitter, you're not going to be able to do that because those services are blocked by the Great Firewall. It is possible to access those services by using a VPN, and a VPN essentially masks your location by routing your IP address through servers in another country. So it takes your IP address and it says, it makes it look like you're in Japan or in the US or somewhere else. And as a result, you can access Facebook, Google, Gmail, Blackboard, some of the other things that you might need to access while you're over in China. The VPN will sometimes slow down your internet, but it will make it secure. So there are lots of services that you can install on your laptop, iPad, or iPhone that allow you to sort of jump the firewall and access your email and other things. Technically, the services are illegal. So citizens of China who use VPNs, there are crackdowns against them. In general, though, looking with the State Department and looking on other websites, the government generally turns a blind eye to tourists and short-term visitors who use these services because we need them here in the U.S. to do business and to keep up with our work and other things. So it's typically been seen as okay for short-term visitors to use the VPNs to access these services. There are several services that I have used that you can try, and again, there's usually a fee associated with these, and it really depends on what you want. China also does occasionally start blocking VPN services, so just because these services work now doesn't necessarily mean that they will work while we are there. But I've used Viper VPN over the past year and have had good success with that. We used that in December, and it was fine. There were two other services that I had used that were blocked in 2015. But SurfEasy and ExpressVPN are also good options that work. You install them on your phone or your iPad or your computer using an app. An app download on a Mac. It's a software download if you're using a PC laptop, or it's an app in an Android store. And you just log into the app, and the app sets it up on your phone. It's actually pretty automatic. It's very easy. Most of the services offer free trials, and so depending upon how much you're going to be using the internet, the free trial may cover you for the time that you are there, but don't necessarily count on that. SurfEasy, I think I use SurfEasy, and they had a 500 megabyte trial, which covered most of my time there in last year. So, SurfEasy is easy. The one that most people are recommending is Viper VPN. It's updated the most often. Their customer service is good. Anyway, that's the one that I'm using right now. But again, it's personal preference. You may not want to use them. You may not need to use them. If you don't need to access Facebook, Twitter, Gmail, YouTube, we've even found that Exchange email here in the US is filtered out occasionally. So our email here at the university is on an Exchange server. And so just to access my UI email, I need to use a VPN to get to it. So I see it as a necessity for work, and so I purchase a subscription. If you don't need to use email or do Facebook updates, if you can actually survive without that, you may not need a VPN. But if you do need one, these are some good options, and they're there for you. So I hope that is helpful. Are there questions about that? Okay, I'm going to assume there's no question, so we'll go ahead and move on. Other recommended apps. So, okay, Carol just asked, should we wait until just before we leave to install? No, you can install it right now. And actually, it's probably better to install it here in the US and make sure that it's working on your phone or your iPad or your computer before you go. So if you are going to use a VPN, I would highly recommend doing it within the next week or two and just playing around with it so that you figure out how it works. Most of them are relatively easy, but again, everybody's computer is different. So there have been funny issues. Most of the subscriptions are per month. So you'd buy a month-long subscription. So if you buy it now, it would last you until we got back from the trip. And then you cancel it when you get back. So that's typically what I will do if I know I'm going to China. I'll buy a month-long subscription, then I cancel it when I get back. I don't use it when I'm here in the US. So there's no reason to pay for it. But yeah, if you're going to do it, I would go ahead and do it now and get that taken care of. I would, other apps that you may want to install before you go, because you may not be able to access them there, but they are useful. Plico. People have asked me about a Chinese language translation app. Plico is probably the best one out there. It's a dictionary. It's a translation app. It also has a feature, if you pay for it, where you can take a picture of the characters and it will translate them for you. The one below it, however, Weigo, is free. So it's actually a free app that will translate characters if you take a picture of it, and they've just barely done an update so that the picture recognition, the character recognition works offline now, which is really convenient. So both Plico and Weigo are worth it if you plan on trying to read things or get by on your own. iTranslate is another one that I will use frequently. People ask me why I don't use Google Translate, because again, Google is difficult to use in China. you can't access it. So iTranslate is actually developed through Microsoft, which is not blocked, and so it's generally pretty reliable. Others have asked about Chinese phrases. There is the Learn Chinese Phrasebook app that I've linked here that actually has some really good survival phrases, and it has the tones, and it has people saying it. It has recordings of people saying it. So again, if you're worried that you might get lost, or or you want to just have some good Chinese phrases there at your fingertips, that's a good one to download. And then another option is WeChat. WeChat is China's version of Facebook, instant messaging, Skype, everything, Twitter, all together in one. It's actually like the super Facebook of China, and I like it a lot. Dr. Shi and I use WeChat to communicate when we're in China. WeChat is the primary platform for communicating in China now. And so if you want to play around with it and get on a Chinese social network, you can download WeChat. It's actually very convenient, and most Americans who download it and use it really like it. So it will work on your phone, on the cellular network. It will work over Wi-Fi, but it's worth playing around with. And again, it's just another way to have a uniquely Chinese experience. So let me know if you download WeChat, and then we'll find you and we'll link everybody up on our phones. It's also worthwhile to have a ready calculator and a metric conversion app. China runs on the metric system, so sometimes you need to convert things from metric to imperial units, and so having a conversion app can be useful at times. Also, a calculator on your phone can be useful if you're trying to barter for something, and there's a language barrier there. Everyone understands numbers, so having a calculator can be useful for bartering at times. So anyway, those are my recommended apps. Again, you can go look at them. Most of them are free, and in fact, all of them are free. You can pay for upgrades to Plico and iTranslate, but in general, these are things that would be useful, and I've found that other people use frequently when we're in China. So, everyday carry. What you carry on a daily basis is up to you, and certain people like to travel lighter than others. The thing to realize is that on this particular trip, once we leave the hotel in the morning, we are typically not going to be going back to the hotel until the evening. And so it is worth having the things that you will need throughout the day with you there. So there's some general recommendations. This is typically what I carry with me every day. So I have a small backpack, a satchel. I don't carry a purse, although I have thought about it. But I have a small backpack, and I do have a sort of a commuter bag that I have brought to carry things in. You should plan on bringing a light jacket and dress in layers when we're in Shanghai. Shanghai can be chilly in the springtime, and the weather can change pretty quickly. So having a light jacket and then having something to carry layers in if it gets warm during the day and you want to take them off is very convenient. So you should plan on bringing something warm. The weather in Shanghai is probably very similar to what we have in Moscow right now. So, kind of warm during the middle of the day, but it gets chilly at night. So just think about, and I guess Boise's about the same. You get about 50 during the day, but then you'll get down in the 40s, 30s at night. So you will definitely want warm clothes in Shanghai. So there's that. Toilet paper. Public toilets in China do not provide toilet paper. So it is best to carry toilet paper with you on a daily basis. So carry a small pack of tissues. I just use little Kleenex packs and have 2 or 3 of them in my bag at a time, just in case. So they also come in handy in restaurants as napkins and other things. So toilet paper is something that you do have to carry in China that you don't typically have to carry here in the US. You should also carry your passport on a daily basis. It's actually the law in China that all visitors carry their passport on a daily basis. Now, there's a lot of people who argue, well, nobody checks it. But technically the law is that you have your passport with you at all times because the police can stop and check anybody's passport at any time. So it's best to carry your passport. It's best to carry that on your person and not in your bag, so that if your bag gets lost or stolen, that you still have your passport. The same goes for cash and credit cards. You should carry all your cash and credit cards with you on a daily basis, not leave them in the hotel. Camera and phone are important on a daily basis. They're usually integrated. Any first aid items that you might need, so ibuprofen, aspirin, Band-Aids, Imodium, allergy medicine, things that you need, you should plan on carrying. A small container of antibacterial wipes or gel. Wipes are a little easier to get through security. If you bring gel, you have to bring it. You take it out through security, and anyway, it's a little bit more of a hassle. Then we will make sure that everyone has a card with the name of the hotel on it in Chinese and the address. That's something that you should also carry in case you get lost, so you can always get back to the hotel. And then finally, a bottle of water and any small snacks that you might want through the day. We will be eating regularly, but everybody has different energy needs. And water is not always readily available, so always having a bottle of water with you just in case can be quite convenient. Katie just asked on chat, can we leave our passport in the hotel room safe and just carry copies on us? Yes, you can do that, but technically the U.S. State Department has recommended that people carry their actual passport with them. Number one, not every hotel has safes. So in your room, you may be able to leave it with the front desk. If you feel safe doing that, they may have a safe or a deposit box there. But technically, according to the law, everyone is supposed to have their actual physical passport on them on a daily basis. So again, I'm not going to be checking. Everybody's an adult. You can figure this out. I'm just passing along what the legal requirements are. Have I gone out without my passport? Yes, absolutely, because it is kind of a pain to carry sometimes. You should probably carry it with you. I'm just going to put that out there. You should probably carry it with you just to be safe. I mean, that's the safest option. Dr. Shred just typed in actually also that the local tour guide will offer cards on which the hotel name is written in Chinese. So we will make sure that everybody has that so that if you need to get back to the hotel, you can get back to the hotel. Okay, let's see. Safety. China is a very safe country. I actually feel safer in China than I do here in the U.S. That's primarily because there's not the same gun issues and everything in China as we have here in the U.S. But like other locations where there's tourists, there is always the potential for petty crime. If you're going to leave things in your room, valuables in your room, make sure that you put them in the safe. If your room has a safe, again, not all hotel rooms do have safes. If there is no safe, carry them with you. I have also hid things if I didn't want to carry things with me. I've hidden my computer actually in the room where I think nobody will find it. But it's best to lock up valuables just to be sure. Again, always carry your passport and credit cards with you on your person, not in your bag, in case you lose your bag, so that you at least have those items. Again, just like any travel situation, be aware of your surroundings and mindful of your belongings. Always let me and Dr. Shua know if you're going to go out on your own, if you're going to take off and do something, so that we know where you're going. We know that everyone's an adult, but again, we feel somewhat responsible. So please please just let us know. The other issue is don't openly voice opinions that are contrary to China's laws, and don't discuss political issues in general. This is a cultural delegation. Our focus is on understanding China's culture and everything else, and we're not diplomats. So we want to try to be friendly, open, and not confrontational. So just be careful of what you say. And China is typically not a problem. It's not like when I was in India, and I would say I would say things that I didn't think were a problem, and it would make people very upset. But just being an American in northern India made people very upset. So, and then finally, always carry a card with the address of the hotel on it, or you can also call or text me, and my cell phone number's there. I'll make sure that everybody has that information. Again, so that's repetition, just so that you can always get back to where we're staying in case something happens. Trying to think if there's anything else I needed to add here, but I don't think so. It's pretty clear. This is one that has come up twice on my trips. Once with me, and then once once a friend actually got caught in one of these scams. And this is especially true in Shanghai. If we go to touristy areas in Shanghai, people will approach you and try to practice their English. If they do that, I would, again, greet them with a smile and skepticism. Most Chinese people are pretty shy when it comes to foreigners. So they're probably selling something, or they're trying to work a scam. There's the tea house scam, where they take people and they say, we want to practice English with you, and they're really friendly, and they take you to a tea house, and they buy tea, and then everybody gets up and leaves, and you get stuck with an exorbitant bill. That's what happened to my friend. He got stuck with this exorbitant bill, and they wouldn't let him leave. They're actually pretty forceful until he paid the bill. And so it was a way to essentially extort money. So just be wary. These English scams on university campuses and stuff, there'll be people who want to practice English, and I think that's totally fine. But in more touristy areas, just be wary and never follow a stranger anywhere, period. Just good advice when you're in another country. And if those of you are looking at the chat here, I will send this out. Dr. Shue just put her cell phone number up there. It's her Chinese cell phone number, so that if there's problems, you can call her there or text her there. And I will make sure that everybody has a copy of that before we go. So, health. This is one more thing to send us. Before we go, I was thinking, I don't know if anyone has allergies, so please let us know if you have any allergies, so that we can take that into account when we're ordering food or planning activities. If you have a seafood allergy, a peanut allergy, these are both very common things to eat in Shanghai and in Guangzhou. So we need to know any allergies that you might have, so that we can be sure that we don't end up with a medical emergency. If you've been to China, you know that you cannot drink the water from the taps in China. It is treated, but it's not to the same standards as we have here in the U.S. And actually, most Chinese people don't drink water from the taps in China. Most hotel rooms will provide you with a couple bottles of water, and then you can we'll make sure that everybody has the opportunity to buy bottled water at a convenience store or a hotel store when we need, and we will make regular stops. Also, the tour guides will also provide us with bottled water throughout the day. But this is just something to be aware of, because people slip up all the time and fill their water bottle or rinse their toothbrush in the water. Typically, you should also brush your teeth with bottled water, just to be safe. You never know. So with that said, though, staying hydrated and drinking a lot of water is important to staying healthy while you're there in China. So if you feel like you need water, let us know, and we will make sure that we get water for everybody. I mentioned this last time, but just in case, because the most common thing that people pick up from the water is intestinal issue. So if possible, travel with a Z-Pack, which is antibiotic azithromycin, for potential problems, and then also having a couple of Imodium packs is also not a bad idea. Anyway, I have a pretty delicate disposition, so I end up with something almost every time I travel anywhere. There's people who have no problems, but I've learned I will always pick something up usually. And having azithromycin or Imodium can mean the difference between a really terrible day and actually making it through the day. So just a recommendation. Cultural tips. So let's see. Before I go into cultural tips, are there any other health issues or questions that you have? And if you do, please feel free to email those. I will try to respond. And yeah, you should feel free to ask any health issues that you want. We want to be aware of everyone's health status and try to make sure everyone has as enjoyable a trip as possible. Okay. So I will go ahead and move on with cultural tips here. Eating in China. So we will eat in China. We'll actually eat quite a bit. I find that I spend a lot more time eating in China than I do here in the U.S. because China has a very food-centric culture, whereas here in the U.S. we tend to be more utilitarian about our food. It's more, we have to eat because we have to eat. Whereas in China, there is definitely a food culture and socializing and just a lot of relationship building happens over food. So we spend a lot of time eating. That's just how it is. Occasionally, alcohol consumption is part of that eating. Just to be aware, typically in Guangzhou in southern China, the alcohol culture is not as strong as it is in northern China. But if you are offered alcohol, you can decline at the very outset. Drinking tea is acceptable, which is what you will be offered as well. But if you begin drinking, if you choose to drink alcohol, you should be prepared to keep up with the host. Drinking is a very social activity in China. It's not like here in the U.S. where you drink on your own. You drink with the host or with everybody else at the table, and there's a whole ritual to it. And if you start, you should be prepared to continue. So anyway, because we're all adults, I leave the choice of whether you actually drink or not to you. But just be aware that if you start, you have to be prepared to finish. So another thing that's surprising to people is that rice is generally not served with meals in China. If you want rice with your meal, you should let the host know at the beginning of the meal. Rice is typically, if it's needed, is served at the end as kind of a filler. But in most cases, you don't have rice put out on the table. But if you have an upset stomach, or if you feel like some of the other food might not agree with you, you can ask for rice, but it will not be provided right at the very outset of the meal. You will also be expected to eat with chopsticks. Some places may be able to provide you with a fork and a spoon, but it's more fun and adds to the experience if you eat with chopsticks. Plus, it allows your host to laugh at you and to have a really good time as you try to eat things like chicken drumsticks or chicken feet and other things with chopsticks. So, just to be aware of that. Please try to eat everything that's offered to you. Food is a really important way that Chinese show their hospitality, and it's generally not polite to decline food. Frequently, the host will serve the guest's food on some cases, and so if you're served something, please try to eat it. if you can, unless you have an allergy. The other thing is that table settings are going to be different in Shanghai and Guangzhou. So pay attention in how the host or the person at the head of the table, whoever is sort of hosting the meal, uses their plates and bowls. There will be different table settings, and the use of plates and bowls vary between northern China, southern China, even cities I found. So yeah, it's just again a cultural thing. It's fun to pay attention to, and to see in some places the bowl is what you eat out of, and then you put the bones and other things on the plate. And other places you eat off the plate, and then you put the bones and the inedible aspects of the food in the bowl. Anyway, so and when you're done eating, leave a little bit of food on your bowl and plate. There is some debate about this, but as a general rule, if you've eaten everything, you will be served more. And so we actually learned this. The director of the School of Music here at UI went with us in December, and he was sitting next to the host at a meal, and he kept eating everything that the host gave him, and he kept eating and eating, and he leans over to me and says, "I can't eat anymore." But he kept eating everything in his bowl, and so because his bowl was empty, the host kept giving him more and more food. If you're done eating, leave a little bit of food there, and that will usually keep people from filling up your bowl or your plate. It also shows that the host was gracious and that they provided enough food for everybody to eat. So if there's a little bit left over, it shows that that everyone had sufficient food. So again, there's a cultural aspect to it. Dr. Shi also asked that if you can't have spicy food, just let us know about that. We don't eat a lot of spicy food, but if you prefer not to, we will try to avoid it. Other cultural tips, because people have asked. Bargaining is generally accepted and expected at independent shops, but not in department stores or convenience stores. So we will tell you when you can bargain and when you can't. But in most cases, you can bargain, and it's kind of expected that you will bargain for the items that you want to buy. If you don't, you will probably be paying exorbitant prices for that. And it's a little hard to do over a webinar, but Dr. Shi and I can give you some tips and can sort of maybe model how you would bargain in China if you would like, once we're all together and we are there. It might be a fun thing to do over lunch or a dinner. Related to bargaining, you will find that people talk loudly in China, a lot more loudly than we do here in the US. In the United States, when we want to emphasize things, we change our tones. We emphasize our words and we change our tones. In China, because the tones remain constant, when they want to emphasize something, their volume goes up. So it's normal. It doesn't mean that people are angry frequently when they're bargaining, or if they're really passionate about a subject. People will talk loudly. I've traveled with people who get nervous when people are talking loudly, and it's just something to be aware of. People, it's just loud. It's just a cultural difference in what we have here in the United States. When we're out and about, don't be surprised if people ask to take a picture with you. This will happen. Foreigners are not common in some of the areas we go. Shanghai, this probably will not happen. But in Guangzhou, there are fewer tourists in some of the places we'll be going. And so people may want to take a picture with you. It's a fun way to connect with local people and yeah, it's just fun. So yeah, don't be surprised. People always take pictures with me. I don't know why. If we're in a formal circumstance and people present you with a business card, accept it with both hands. So they will present it with both hands in front of them. And I can actually turn on my webcam maybe and show people this. Let's see. All right. Let's see. So I guess people can see me now. So they say. But people will present their business card by holding it with two hands and presenting it out front like this. You will accept the business card with two hands, Okay. And yes, you will then look at it briefly for a moment before you slip it into your pocket, even if you can't read Chinese. In some cases, there'll be English on one side and Chinese on the other. But the business card culture is very important in China. We're a little more lackadaisical with our business cards here in the United States, but in China, it's a very formal ritual where it's handed with two hands, it's received with two hands, and then you look at it before you put it in your pocket. It's also good to remember the person's name. The primary reason they give it to you is so you can remember their name. So just be aware of that. Also, there will be handshaking. In the West here, when we shake hands, we want a firm grip. In China, you will find that it is not a firm grip. So please, when you're shaking hands, be a little more gentle and delicate than you would be here in the U.S. Don't crush your host's hands. It's just, again, it's a cultural difference that is just something that you need to be aware of, because I have seen people come in and give a nice firm Western handshake, and you've seen the other people walk away shaking their hands because it hurt. So be soft in your handshakes. And then once we're there and we're all together, we will work with you on a few key phrases and words. And having some modicum, having at least a word or two of Chinese in your vocabulary is a really good way to connect with people and to at least show that you're making an attempt to understand the culture. So we will work with you on a few key phrases and words. Also, that app that I sent you, the Learn Mandarin Phrasebook app, also has some fun things to learn and maybe to practice before we get together on the 12th. So Ashley just asked whether your business cards should have Chinese on them. No, your business cards do not have to have Chinese on them. An English business card is just fine. So don't worry about that. It would be expecting way too much to have to have you have Chinese on your business cards. So an English business card is totally appropriate. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing my webcam because nobody wants to see that. All right. Packing tips. We're almost done. There was a question last time about carry-on. When I meant carry-on, I meant packing with a carry-on and not checking luggage. I meant one small suitcase. So this is sort of the standard international carry-on size. It's about 22 inches, 14 inches by 9 inches. It fits in the little carry-on containers there when you check in at the airport. So it has to fit within those size restrictions. And then another small bag, which is a backpack or purse, something. That's what I mean when I meant packing with a carry-on. Again, everybody's an adult, and we can't require that you not check luggage. And in fact, when you're traveling internationally, you can check 2 bags for free, as long as they're under 50 pounds each. So if you need to check luggage, you do have that option. But I highly recommend, and I think that Jason and Matthew would agree with me on this, that if you can carry on, it makes your life a lot easier. You don't have to wonder if you're going to be getting your luggage, and it just speeds up the whole process of getting through customs and passport control and everything else. If you can get off the plane and have everything you need and go straight through it before everybody else hits it. So with regards to that, if you are packing carry-on or if you're packing in general, trying to pack low maintenance, wrinkle resistant clothing is best. Irons are not provided in most hotels in China, unlike here in the US. So if you're going to be packing dress shirts and things like that, wrinkle resistant shirts are best. Something that could be maybe steamed in a bathroom or just hung out and would, not look too bad. But it's a little difficult to find irons. You can sometimes request them from the front desk. But in most cases, again, low maintenance clothing is better. Clothing that can be washed in a hotel bath or sink is convenient and is another way to help save space. Pants, underwear, t-shirts, things like that dry quickly. again, if you're willing to wash it, then you don't have to pack as much. It's also not going to be terribly hot when we're there, so I don't expect that things are going to be sweaty or get too terribly stinky, unlike the summer. So also related to packing, bring sensible socks and shoes. I sound like a mother there, but we will be walking quite a bit, and shoes, high heels, things like that. A little bit difficult to be in all day because we will not be changing. So sensible socks and shoes that you can walk a ways in, that can potentially get wet while we're out if it's raining, and that are comfortable and aren't going to give you blisters, are going to be the thing to pack. I typically pack 2 pairs of shoes. I pack a pair of dress shoes, comfortable dress shoes, and then I pack a pair of sneakers, like Vans or Converse or something like that are pretty easy to pack and pretty small. And that's what I go with. On most days, I mentioned this last time, will be business casual. So we should have on the days that we visit schools, will be a little more formal. So men should have sport coats and ties. For these official visits, women, it's a little more flexible in terms of what you wear, but thinking of what you would wear for a business meeting, a staff meeting, something like that. In general, strive to always look professional. Don't wear it if you wouldn't wear it to work. And again, I'm sure everyone is totally fine with that, but I have to say it. So strive to always look professional. Okay. Let me go back to chat and see. All right. I've provided a couple of good packing websites here. If you've never tried to pack light, there is an art and science to it. So these are some websites that I've found interesting information on. And anyway, you can check them out in your spare time. There's lots of different philosophies around how to pack light and what to bring and what not to bring. As a general rule, when you're packing light, you have to kind of do away with. I remember that Seinfeld episode where George packed like 3 suitcases because he had to have an outfit for every single one of his moods. He had to have all the colors and everything so he could choose. You have to get away from the George Costanza mindset. And you have to essentially pack. I pack in whites, blacks, and grays so that everything can be mixed and matched and used in different ways. And white, black, and gray is typically pretty utilitarian in most cases. And it also, at least the black and the gray, hides stains and dirt a little better. White shirts, not so much, but again, the white shirts I typically only wear to formal events, and then I will change. So let's see. Some of this, we're wrapping up here. Arrangements in Seattle. I've said this last time, but I just want to remind everybody it's irresponsible to be in Seattle by March 12th by our 12:55 p.m. flight to Shanghai. They will begin boarding that flight an hour in advance, so 11:55. We would like you to be at the gate around 11:45. This is because they have to check your passport and visa before you get on the plane and issue you a new ticket. So when you fly internationally, you have to get that new ticket that shows that your documents have been checked and that they're okay. So that takes a little bit of time. So please make sure that you are there at least an hour in advance so that we can get that taken care of. And again, how you get to Seattle is up to you. Some people are flying. I will be driving out to Seattle on March 11th with my family. So I will be there a little bit early. But again, please try to be at the gate where our flight leaves for Shanghai at 11:45 a.m. at the latest. Upcoming issues and reminders. This is kind of a surprise, and I'm trying to figure out how to handle it. The University of Idaho International Programs Office said that they need to do an orientation with you because this is a UI-sponsored group. So the only day that Colton Oliphant can do it is March 1st. And so my plan is to record that, and if you can make it on March 1st at 5 p.m. to 6 p.m., that will be great. If you can't, I will record it, and you can access the presentation by Colton via a webinar recording, just like I'm recording this session here. There is still some question about the insurance for this trip that Colton's looking into. And anyway, I don't have an answer on that, but I'm hoping that by March 1st next week that he will have an answer. So I will send this out in an email as well. But this March 1st orientation, he said is primarily, he's going to structure it like a question and answer session. So if you have time, March 1st in the evening, 5 p.m. Pacific time, 6 p.m. Mountain time, please put this on your calendar. I know at short notice, so if you have other things already scheduled at that time, again, I will record it and you can access it at a later time. You will have to go through, you'll have to verify that you've gone through the orientation before we leave on March 12th. There is also a registration for this trip that's through the International Programs Office. It's a quick link where you just put in your information and everything. This is primarily for insurance purposes. Again, because the insurance that the university provides is typically used for student groups, we're kind of an odd duck. And so the insurance company has been having an issue because you are not students. Most of you are not students. I'm sure we're all lifelong learners, but we don't qualify as University of Idaho students. So there's had to be some shuffling around of the insurance policies. And again, that's all still being sorted out, but I will send out a registration link where you essentially put in your information, your name, contact information, and your passport, and sort of just basic contact stuff, so that we can make sure that you're covered by the university's insurance before we go. There are also a few of you who need to sign waivers before we go. Because we've been busy over the last 3 weeks with some big events in Boise and here in Moscow, I haven't quite got those out. But those of you who need to sign waivers, I will send those out within the next week. So I think most of you know who you are, so I will try to get those finalized and sent out within the next little bit. And then finally, the payment for the ticket from Seattle to Shanghai, the total amount of $727.68 that has to be made to the Confucius Institute office prior to March 12th before we go. So if you haven't contacted Dusty at the Confucius Institute office, please do so before we go to get that ticket taken care of. And again, I think most everybody got my email that Hanban is going to be covering our tickets from Shanghai to Guangzhou. So we don't need to worry about that amount. So I think I have talked enough. Are there any questions, concerns, issues, anything that you would like to ask? And I will unmute everybody. Hopefully it won't get too noisy. And you can ask questions via audio or you can type them in. Anything? Everything is good. Well, good. See, as Jason and Matthew said there, it sounds like one of their meetings. I learned from the pros, so I really just copied Jason and Matthew's stuff and just adapted it to the university. You know, they do this more than I do. So if there's no questions, or if you don't want to ask a question to the whole group, you are free to email me or to call or text me. I will actually give everybody my cell phone number. It's in the presentation, but I'll type it in here too. My cell phone number is right there. I just put it up on the chat. So if you want to copy that down or put it in your phones, you are free to call or text me at any point in time. If you think of anything that you need help with or have concerns about. And otherwise, I think we're done. So thank you everybody for your time. I'm really looking forward to this. It's been a long time coming, and yeah, this is going to be a great trip. I'm really excited to actually meet each of you in person. I've met some of you, but not all. So I'm looking forward to meeting everybody and actually making this happen. I think it's going to be a really fun trip. So anyway, call, email, text, and we will be in touch within the next couple days or two. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening. We will talk with you later.